Welcome back to Usapang Bayan. Kasama pa rin po natin si BCCP Chairman Mr. Chris Nelson. Sir, in your opinion, will Brexit affect the ties between UK and the Philippines?
I can only see it actually affecting it positively. If you actually see since the vote took place, obviously, first of all, the general, and it's been very quoted by the current administration, bearing in mind we have an election going on in the UK, so obviously we do not know the results until June 9th. There's clearly a key focus to develop trade relations around the world. I'd just like to focus on how many people have visited, and we've had senior ministers visit the Philippines. The most recent was Dr. Liam Fox. Previously, we had Alok Sharma, who is a minister from the Foreign Office with special responsibility for Southeast Asia. We've also had Richard Graham, MP, that's a Member of Parliament, who has a specific portfolio as a special trade envoy of the Prime Minister, and he's put a lot of focus on the Philippines. So I only see an upside, actually, from Brexit, and I also see continuing growth in the trade and relations.
Chris, I don't want to put you in the spot here, but I just wanted to ask your opinion, having been the chairman of the British Chamber of Commerce here in the Philippines, even during the previous administration. How would you compare the previous administration to this administration? Not necessarily that one's better or the other. Maybe in terms of their focus, how they do things. Can you comment on that?
Well, I'd say that, first of all, I was chairman more towards this administration, but if I had to put a focus, first of all, I do like the 10-point economic plan. I do like the fact that that economic plan was solicited from various business groups. I think FPI was also there, and I think that actually shows a willingness to listen to the business community to see and try and get a unified plan. We all like the 10-point economic plan. Obviously, there are differences in terms of financing. I think that Secretary Jokno, for example, has been very clear that the deficit will go up and that they can finance the growth. I think the previous administration was more fiscally conservative, if I use that terminology. And I do think there'll be a difference in terms of how they approach projects. This administration believes they can finance it from public funds and then have a maintenance or operation by the private sector, whereas the previous administration was more into the private sector doing the whole project and obviously on a fee basis. What I would say is that we do, as all the chambers, we endorse the 10-point economic plan. I think there's a right focus there. I think what we'd all like to see is obviously some of the movement in terms of the major projects. And I would like to say that they've made a reference to easing the foreign restrictions on investment, which I think under the Constitution is called the negative investment list. And we're very supportive of that. Because there is a lot of investment, we believe, UK companies and others would bring if that list or those restrictions were lifted.
Are you optimistic, sir, that UK companies and businesses will flourish under the Duterte administration?
I would. I think that we've seen that happening. If I give some examples over the last, by the way, we run a project with the UK government. It's now called the Overseas Partner Delivery. And we've had over 1,000 companies express an interest to do business. Now, let me be very clear, not 1,000 companies have established themselves here. But we have examples already of companies doing business through that project. So yes, I am encouraged. The other thing I just want to say actually is, from a very practical point, I went to Davao. I had meetings with the city administration. I had meetings with the Davao Promotion and Investment. I had meetings with the Davao Chamber. And what struck me about Davao, which is obviously where the president comes from, is they were very businesslike. And the first question was not, pleasantries, much more after pleasantries was, what can we do? How quickly we can do it? What can we do for you? Which I think is very refreshing. And I think what business wants, particularly small to medium-sized enterprise, which is part again of the 10-point economic plan, is can we reduce red tape and bureaucracy and get business moving much quicker? So yes, I'm very encouraged.
Well, in terms of your personal preferences, You're married to a Filipina. You've lived here for more than a decade.
Indeed.
And are you planning to settle down here in the Philippines? And if you're planning to do so, what would be the major consideration of why you would like to settle here in the Philippines, so that maybe some other foreigners might hear about that and they might consider it as well?
Look, first of all, as we say, never say never. But on the current state, it's most likely I'll be here. Now, why? Well, first of all, actually, of course, is the people. I mean, actually, I've lived in the Middle East, I've lived in other countries, and this is one of the easiest countries to assimilate. Filipinos are very accepting, so therefore I have many friends, both Filipinos and foreigners. And I think that's a very critical point to people. You can be part of the society and be very welcomed.
They speak English as well.
They do. Maybe they don't quite understand my British accent at times, but no, they do, and that's actually a big plus. So I think for people coming, I think the people is number one plus. It's English speaking, as you rightly point out, George. And I think that people can see here an environment where, at the end of the day, you want to be accepted and you have interesting times. I stay here because I like to contribute. I sit on many boards. In addition to being on the bank, I'm also chairman of a school, which is called Doma Scholar. I'm also on the Philippine Band of Mercy. I'm on the American Chamber Foundation charity. And I think, once you get here, you get wrapped up in. So I think it's a great country.
Well, just so as to balance things out, what would be the one thing that you would like to see changed here in the Philippines that will make it even better for you to stay on?
Well, I couldn't give you one. I'll give you
whatever, a couple.
I'll give you maybe two immediate ones. Of course, one is traffic. And look, I'm lucky, but I see people queuing up at the MRT and the LRT, and I have a lot of sympathy for them. And I compare it to London and the underground system, and I say to people, never complain about London, because this is... So number one would be traffic. Number two, I say, it's the things which I think we all would complain about. I'll give an example. I have a Philippine driving license. I drive in the Philippines. When I went to renew, there was no plastic. Now, in these type of thing, we should look to get it issued on the spot. Fortunately, I got mine fairly quickly, to be fair to the people. I have bought a car. The license plate is still waiting or pending. And I'm sure these are frustrations which, if it can be overcome, and I come back to bureaucracy and red tape. We had a meeting as a chamber with Senator Mig Zuberi, who has put a bill to, I think it's called the anti-red tape bill, actually. And it was a very good discussion, and I think that's the way we need to go. So those are kind of the things, those two. I'm sure I could think of others, but by the way, you have much better weather than the UK, so that's just one thing.
Speaking of traffic, sir, what do you suggest to our government to do to address this traffic situation that we have here in the Philippines?
Well, I think first of all, we just had actually an event last Thursday on actually called telecommuting. So this is people actually working from home. We had Senator Joel Villanueva, who's actually the author of the bill, and we support and endorse that, and I think it actually passed on third reading in the Senate. So that's one approach. The other approach is to really decide on, obviously, the traffic initiatives. I understand they're looking at a Manila subway. They're obviously looking at roads and infrastructure. I think they need to look at the ports. Obviously, a lot of the traffic, understandably, is caused when the trucks move. And to really, which is part of the administration, is to decongest Metro Manila. And the other thing, of course, is which we have to play a role as, is to try and promote other areas of the Philippines. That's why we actually went to Davao. This year, we've just done Davao. We're also looking to do a trade mission to Cebu. And we're also looking potentially at Clark and Subic. So we have to play our role. So in summary, I think what can be done very short term, telecommuting, but that depends on your industries. And then I think, how can you decongest Manila? And thirdly, start some of the projects, because projects take at least 2 to 3 years to come together.
Well, I saw in the headlines today that the president, in his visit to Russia, was asking for the Russian president for help in particularly the Islamic State terrorism problems that we're both encountering. Do you think the United Kingdom can have something to offer the Philippines in that regard, in terms of being able to, let's say, protect us against terrorist attacks like
Look,
that?
I'm sure the United Kingdom, and I know that they've actually offered support. I believe they tried to do quite a bit of assistance and work on Mindanao. They've also tried to do certain peace initiatives and growths in Mindanao as one area. And looking at the UK, but of course we started off, there was a discussion about the awful tragedy in Manchester. I'd like to say, having grown up in the UK, although I actually left 30 years ago, but still visit every year.
It doesn't show that. Don't worry
No,
about it.
we're still, you can't take the UK out of the man. But I think the UK is a very accepting society. And I think that's the other thing. We have to get to a way of both economically and socially. And that's why I think what's happened recently is so sad, is that, as you saw today from Manchester, we're a multiracial society. And I think the UK can assist, but I think it's an issue which is going to not confront just the Philippines and the UK, but it's actually a worldwide an area.
Sir, the relationship between the European Union and the Philippines has been tainted due to the pronouncements made by President Duterte and the bloc regarding the administration's current drug war. Do you think this will also influence the ties between the Philippines and United Kingdom?
I don't think so. I think that I would say definitely not. I mean, I think the way that the administration has responded, obviously, for example, as I said, recently we had the visit of Dr. Liam Fox, our trade minister. It was a short notice. He was received, as I understand, I was in the meeting, graciously by President Duterte and accorded a long time. So I do think that the UK has established a very good relation, and I have to give, you should always give credit to our ambassador. I think he's done a tremendous job here, and his team as well, and I think that will continue.
Thank you very much, sir. So when we return, please stay tuned. Nagbabalik pa rin po ang Usapang Bayan. Kasama pa rin po si BCCP Chairman Mr. Chris Nelson.